Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. I finally got the legend on. He's very hard to track down, but I got him. I do not approve the mustache, but that's okay. I digress. Guys, no bullshit. I met this man once before I broke his heart and moved away, but he is the single nicest, most giving investor I have met on this planet, and he's also a land killer. So we have the pleasure of having Mr. Clint Turner on the podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm good. And first off, I have to say it's a goatee. So thank you very much for that.
I can't see.
You just got to get real close. I got red hair. It's light. All right. I give you shit for that. But no, thanks, Austin. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. So, I think that we could go many different ways with this podcast, but I think the best thing to do is kind of just tell them what you specialize in, and then we'll kind of cover that, and then we'll cover a little mindset stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So started investing in land 6 years ago. I love to tell my first deal story because it kind of changed it for me. I was doing all sorts of stuff. I was putting ATMs in places, trying to flip houses, and all of a sudden I stumbled across land. Bought a property in the middle of Colorado. It's actually near one you own, Austin.
Yeah.
It's I bought it for $900. All right. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. So it was a 5-acre piece of land, just flat in the middle of Colorado, nothing on it, maybe a tree or two. And I listed that bad boy on Facebook, and I got $1,500 down, and I got $250 a month for 5 years. And I was like, I just made money. And I'm about to get $250 a month for the next 72 months or 60 months or whatever it is. I think it's 60. I was like, I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna be out of this job. No time, baby. Took a little longer than expected, but man, that just kind of changed it for me. It was my first big entrepreneurial win. And then just have really, taken the last 6 years to grow and learn.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. And we're working on a deal. We're working on 2 deals right now that I would say a little bit inspired by you, but super excited about the ROI on this one. You ready for this one?
Yeah, tell me.
So it's almost so embarrassing. I can't even say it. So we picked it up for $30K. It's got a 2-1 and 6 RV slots already done in West Texas in the oil fields. And it's going to cash flow in its first year fully rented at $42,000.
Yep. That sounds like West Texas. I love West Texas, man. I bought about 160 acres out there one time. The access was questionable. We battled with the title company for a month on it. Eventually they warranted it, but it was tough. It was tough access. Anyway, we bought this whole 160. I think we paid $30,000 for it, 25 or 30. Paid a surveyor about $8,000 to go find it. Plot it out, cut it up into 16 10-acre lots. Mm-hmm. We sold that thing. We got about 55,000, 60,000 down. So we made 30 in about 2 months. And then we sold about $250,000 in notes on the back end. So same thing, we'll cash flow from that, probably something like, a few $1,000 a month for the next 6, 7, 8 years, depending on how long. And the truth is some of those will default and we'll sell them again.
No, I love it. So I would say, I'll come from my perspective. I think one of there's a lot of things that are in books. There's a lot of things that are talked about. When I try to learn private equity, when I try to learn building a fund, like there's not a lot of books, man. Like, it's kind of like you got to talk to people and like, dude, I feel like land's the same way. Like there's not a lot. So what would you say is the most misunderstood thing about land investing that people don't get?
Well, I would have said something different probably 3 years ago than I would now. And my thing is that land is a commodity, right? There's limited amount. I could go down and say the old puns of they're not making any more of it, But at the end of the day, how many real estate investors, even, which is a pretty, if you look at the macro, pretty small crowd. Okay. How many real estate investors do you go to know anything about land? Not many, right?
Not many.
So it's a finite resource. It's something that's had historical demand for hundreds of years. If you can learn, if you can become somebody who's a master, who's done it thousands of times, who has struggled through, answered the questions, had to figure it out. If you can learn land, you have a skill set that is one of the most in-demand things on earth. And people just don't understand, because it's not widely traded knowledge, because not a lot of people know of it. When you have a land skill set, you can go create a product that doesn't exist, right? You can't go from your computer and create new 3.2s that ran around 1%. You know what I mean? You can't do it. You have to work with what's there. If you understand land, you understand some of the specifics on how you can go and find a product that the market wants that nobody else can do anything with, because they don't understand just the little specifics that you need to clean up that title issue or get the property access or get it surveyed, or even just the terminology of just buy and sell. Right. So I think land's very misunderstood in the way that it can do a lot of the things traditional real estate can. It can cash flow. I mean, it can make ROIs that are unbelievable, like you just said. Right. I mean, even on a big level, like we're working on 7-figure deals that have 100% returns gross, and like multiple 100% cash on cash returns when you put banks in and all that kind of stuff, use leverage. So land's just a skill set not enough people explore. And when you know it, it opens up pretty much like an unlimited product line, right? You can go to the well and grab gold anytime you want, and there's always a market to sell gold.
And I think one of the bigger issues that investors really frustrate me about investors is I think that a lot of investors look in the short-term scenario for everything. Well, I've never had a lot of money per se in the investor space, so I have to look at it from a different lens. And what I always say to myself is, where are they going to be in 5 years? Right. And so like, if you look at an Austin, Texas, like in my opinion, like Lockhart is a home run. Like I'm hearing tons of projects. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'd have told you, what the fuck are you talking about? But in my opinion, that's how you invest, is you get on those outer realms and then you buy up the land and then you wait for somebody to come call you, because it's coming that way eventually.
I mean, there's a bunch of different strategies, right? So the first deal I just told you is that I did, that's a completely different strategy than like what you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of see it in like an easy way to put it is there's 3 types of deals you do. You do infill lots, stuff that's already created in the city. There's development, there's building, there's roads, there's power, there's water. You're going to buy those at closer to, it's more of a wholesale, like kind of like you're wholesaling a house, pick it up for 40, sell it for 60, whatever, something like that, right? So that's one type of deal you do. The second one is what I call, I just coined this term recently, but I forgot it. Oh, I remember. Urban rural. All right. It's urban, but it's 30 to 60 minutes outside. That's what you just said, right?
Yeah.
So you can land bank it, like you said, buy it, hold it. It's going to come that way eventually. Then figure out what the highest yielding product is, 1/2 acre, 1 acre, 2 acre, 10 acre, turn it into those. And all of a sudden you forced a 6x appreciation in X amount of time. Or you can just flip those things, because the truth is there's a lot of moving parts, and banks, it's hard to get a bank load for a property sub $200,000-$300,000. Banks are just really looking at your personal sheet. And if your personal balance sheet says you can buy it, you're probably going to buy it anyway. So it lowers your buyer pool, right? But that's good for us investors, because that means we put a little extra legwork in. We can buy it at 60% on the dollar and then go take it to market, make a beautiful listing and sell it in 2 weeks. Right. So there's those type of deals. And then there's the third type, which I told you at the beginning. That's rural. That's rural recreational. So there's urban rural, and then rural recreational. That's the stuff that's 2, 3, 4 hours from a city center, or 1 or 2 hours from like a national park type thing, out in the middle of nowhere. Typically is just cut up. Maybe there's some dirt roads cut into it. And those are a lot of where you can do like owner finance strategies. That's where I see those. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I know I just kind of went on a tangent there, but I figured it'd be good to know.
And why is that? Why do you think that people in the land space, either the seller or the buyer, why is it so much more of a practice I've noticed for creative financing, for owner financing? It seems to really lend itself to those avenues. And is that because typically the price is lower and you can't get a loan on it, and they're more used to that? Or is that just somebody that's holding land is typically used to those scenarios?
Yeah. So again, it all depends on demand. That stuff that gets closer to the city. Like, for example, if I threw up one of our development projects right now, is we're making 12-acre tracts about 35 minutes outside of Austin. If I threw those up at $250,000 a piece, I would go under contract in like 18 minutes, right? If I throw it up at 400,000, it would go under contract in 18 days. And then, from there, you can kind of get it scales up. So there's massive demand for a nice little piece of land near Austin. Plenty of money here, plenty of people to buy it. But then you go 3 hours out in the middle of nowhere, or even just say an hour and a half from Austin in the kind of middle of nowhere, right? That property is going to cost you, let's just call it $100,000, right? A lot of people look for that property because they can't afford the one that's right next to, that's real close to the city. So they go farther out. But all of a sudden you have a more speculative asset because there's no development, there's nothing there. And so they say, great, I found this great property I'm going to buy for $100,000. I'm going to go to the bank. I get 20%. I'll put 20% down and they'll finance it and carry the note. There's the breakdown. That won't happen, right? Rarely will you go say, I want to buy a second home recreational piece of land and the bank's going to finance it. So the banks typically are out of the equation. And so what makes land, as I like to say, it's an illiquid asset. Once you leave that super high demand zone, I think it teeters over into an asset that's not necessarily liquid. Sure, it's appraised, it assessed, it says it's this, but it's really hard to move because there's no bank and you have to find the right buyer and you have to have the creative finance strategy and all that kind of stuff. So that's the simple, like the short answer is the banks don't play. Right. Mm-hmm. And we know the banks always win. So if we can come in and play banker, right, and we can create a finance, we can buy it, or we can just use private money lending and still sell it and make a nice return. That means there's just like the banks allow what house flippers and developers to do. Without the banks, there'd be like 1/8 of all investors, right? Because most of them use like traditional financing for a lot of stuff. With land, it's not the same. There's not really that instantaneous, easy access to a line of credit. And so sellers eventually find that out when they try and sell it and deals fall through and everyone's offering seller financing. Why is everyone offering a seller financing? Eventually they understand and they notice it's just hard to sell because nobody will give the leverage for it. And so that's why they do more creative financing. That's why we come in. If we can if we can buy that 30% of the dollar, 40% on the dollar, and then we can be the bank and take 25 or 30% down and charge 9.9% interest over however long, right? You can just create infinite value. So it's really the question of demand and where the banks play.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things, and we'll get into like your students and what you teach, but so this young kid that found the land that we are buying, this asset, we've also been being his bank on other things, and he's flipping trailers. And so he made $1,200 in 5 days off a trailer. And, I'm realizing that he's just an asset that's going to go do the work. And he's giving a demand to people. And now he's even got smarter where he'll just put a post out, what trailer are you looking for? He'll go find it and sell it directly to them. It's so smart. I love this kid. But I want you to talk about, I think the reason that land is super exciting for somebody that wants to get started is, in essence, depending on where you're at, it doesn't take a ton of money. I've heard a lot of stories. I've got coaching clients. So, have you seen a lot of success with people that you coach that are in your mentoring program to just like kind of go from like zero to thing pretty quickly without, having a ton of money in deals and stuff like that? Is that a thing that happens in land, or do you need a lot of cash to get started?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happens. The great thing is like the people who have the most confidence generally are the ones that win the most in land. Because again, it's really easy for timid Shelly to walk into Bank of America or Chase and say, could I apply for a loan for this home? Right? It's a lot harder to go sit down and say, hey, Austin, look at these returns that I'm getting on this land deal. I want you to give me private money so that I can do it. Right? kind of takes a more confident person. So if you don't have the cash, it really, like, you either start doing those small deals, like I said at the beginning, or you're somebody who's, got a big mindset is going to run out and going to tear my inbox open until I like fund all their deals or yours or whatever. Right. So yeah, there's a ton of people, but it always comes down to the person, right? There's unlimited opportunity out there. If you think there's if you don't think there's unlimited opportunity, then you're living in an unfortunate place because there really is in land and in all assets. I think there's unlimited opportunity. You go and create it, right? Land is a little different though. It requires almost that level of like studious nature of like, what the hell is a joint access easement? Like, I don't know. Who do I ask? Like, what does that mean? Does that mean this property is like screwed or whatever? Right. So to answer your question, yeah, there's a lot of hits. There's a lot of people that come out and win, but there's a lot of people also who get sold like a fairy tale online that like you'll make $10,000 a month in your first 6 months. I've seen it done, but it's not always the story, right? Like just like anything else, it takes consistency and work and that studious, want to get better attitude at it.
100%. And my new line that I've been using all week that I came up with is, all the answers that you seek are on the other side of action.
100%.
And I think that I am so sick. If me and Jonathan Farbar were on this podcast together, it's the only thing we fucking talk about. We talk about two things when we play golf every time. Do you have to scale? And people asking for shit and not putting in the work. That's all we talk about, and, you're a coach and you're a mentor. And like, I can't tell you, I mean, it happened twice this week. Hey, I'll do anything to learn Airbnb from you. Okay. I'm happy to jump on a call with you for free. And then they don't show up on the call. And I'm like, you're good. You just lost your one shot. And I'm sure that happens to you all the time too. Right.
Of course.
Yeah. It's just, I don't understand where the disconnect is. Like, you see the success that you've had and you fucking work. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand.
It's that you said it right there. It's a Tony Robbins principle. It's right that you see the success you've had. And in that momentum loop, the people who succeed and don't succeed, it's that fourth step. It's you evaluate what you did. How did that make me feel? Am I going to do it again? Right. And a lot of people try because a guru again says, hey, send 1,500 letters and you're going to just smack one of these deals. Right. And they send 1,500 and they don't get anything. They spend a lot of money, time, and energy. They send another 1,500 and they send a third 1,500 and they look at it and they say, well, doesn't work for me. I'm off. And so it's that like, it's in like, even to a more extreme example, like you said, they don't even show up for the first call. Right. So that's the secret, right? Is see success, whether you got to visualize it in your head and make it happen.
Yeah.
Or it's actually happening and you can use it as fuel. But a lot of people haven't seen the success or felt anything from it. And therefore that's, I think, the fundamental like issue with why people succeed and don't succeed.
Yeah. Jay-Z said, everybody's trying to emulate the results, not the process.
Yeah. The process ain't fun. It ain't sexy,
No, I got 9 podcasts today. Had meetings since 4 a.m. I got up at 3:00. Like, let me say, you might see me in Sedona, but know that your boy's putting in the work. Okay. Yeah. Like my girlfriend wants to track how many people I talk to in a day. She's like, it must she's like, anybody else would be destroyed. And like the same way I view you, like, and understand, guys, like, Clint might be younger than me, but when I sat down and had breakfast with him, like, he expanded my mind to what I could be doing with my coaching program. And so because he had already succeeded and I saw that, then I knew that I could do it too. And so, when you have conversations with somebody, I think one of the number one things I'm teaching my coaching clients, because I put them in rooms they probably think they don't deserve to be in. And you know what their number one thing they say to me every time they leave those rooms? Those people are no different than me.
Bingo. You're all the same. You're just doing different things.
Yeah. And so what would you say in your coaching, the years that you've put it in the mentorship, what would you say are the 1 or 2 or 3 qualities in people that you've seen that have made them the most successful?
First one, clear vision. Okay. You hear it all the time, but people get annoyed with me when I work with them because they're like, hey, I thought I was learning land. And I'm like, but we're spending a whole month on vision. Like we got to know why we're doing the business. And a lot of people skip that part, and they have this, which is fair, that they have this burning fire desire to get out of the XYZ job or thing that they're tied to. And so somebody says you can make $10,000 a month in land, and then you're attached to that result rather than, okay, like I've seen people make $10,000 a month in land in 2 months. Okay. What do you do after that? All right. What's next? Do you give up and be a little bitch and sit on the sidelines? Sorry, I don't know if we can cuss on this podcast.
Yeah,
Or do you or do you continue to grow? Right. Like I have a very clear vision right on my board over here. I know exactly what I want to earn. I know what I want to own. I want to know how much fun I want to have, family, brand, personal. I know all that stuff because I got a clear vision for it. And a lot of people come into it and they maybe get marginal success, little success, and then they don't. And you can just apply this to any domain, right? And then they don't understand the connection of this daily activity that I'm doing connects to 10 fishing trips this year, and visiting 6 new places, and supporting my wife and growing her business, and all the things that are on my board, right? People don't connect that dirty work. Land's not fun. I don't know where people get this idea. Land is boring. It's a boring business. It's old, it's slow, it's boring. So you got to understand, what is this work attached to? I think so many people don't start there and don't revisit it, right? It's the saying, it's like you're 35% more likely to hit a goal you write down, and you're 69% more likely to hit one that you track and review, right? So people don't do that. They don't come back to it. They hear Clint or Austin, whatever. They do it one time.
Dude, thank you so much. Dude, I can't tell you how many times they've been 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in. They're like, you're not talking about real estate. I'm like, we ain't even got started yet, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I gotta clean you up first.
Yeah. You don't understand, man. It's not about real estate. It's about getting you in a place where you're executing on something that makes you excited. Right. That's how I like to communicate it.
And what I make them do is their vision that I make them write. I make them rewrite it 2 months in. And guess what? That baby is 100% different.
It's changing. Yeah. It's always changing. Right. And you need to go through that process and understand that that's a living document that you're allowed to erase and change. Right. We all think that we have to it's just this one path. It's like, dude, I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I want to set my 5-year, my 3-year goal. I'm like, dude, the real estate market changes every 6 months. I don't know how you're going to set business goals for 3 years from now. Right. So it's like having vision and working towards it. I think the other thing, man, that's just the consistency aspect. It's that momentum aspect. It's like being like, are you willing to get punched in the stomach 19 times in order to get that win? Right. Whatever you see the win is, right? Like the win for the gurus that say you can make $10,000 a month passive income and land in 6 months. The 19 punches are the 19 people who tell you to pound sand before you found the 20th one that works, right? Those are actually our numbers. We get around 25 to 30 legitimate leads that end up being like, no, that's way too low of a price for the one deal, right? So especially in those beginning stages, are you willing to be consistent and to get punched in the stomach 29 times and then do that another 100 times, right? So people forget the consistency, and it goes in, that bleeds into marketing, it bleeds into acquiring and due diligence and all the things. But again, it all goes back to vision still. If you don't have a clear vision and you don't consistently work at something, you're going to have what's in your hands. You know what I mean? It's going to be nothing.
So great. And back to your point on the vision part, I think that the bigger issue is that they're worried if they write a vision down or get started, then they're locked into that vision. And here's something I'll tell you. And like I said, I'm me. I talk about me all the time. I don't prescribe what I do for other people because, that's just me. I don't actually have per se, like really defined business goals. I have an idea around who I want to be, who I want to hire, and what we want to be about. And, I think that if I live my life off of like making sure that we're doing the right thing and the values are clear, and I'm supporting my clients and I'm supporting the people that work for me, like I feel like that if they're happy, then we're going to do great in those businesses. and my clients are happy. And so look, do I have a North Star? You better fucking believe it. I know exactly where I want to be in 11 years. I know exactly how much money I want to make, but that's a bigger goal and it doesn't drive me day to day. And I think that's where people have it twisted. Like if you're just like real estate and business, like shit's fucking crazy, man. Like, great. Like we had a deal that went away and then came back and then went away again. And now it's back again. We just put another offer. I'm like, what is going on? Like if you're predicated on that, I need to close that deal to be happy. Like, so I'm in Arte, and Ed Milet said something that's really profound. He said, if you are in the pursuit of happiness, you will never find it. But if you are embodying joy every day, then you can live it in every moment. And understand that this guy, me and you, like we find fun and we find joy and we find fulfillment in the build. It ain't the money. Mm-hmm. And I think people have it twisted. Like I'm going to work out when I get here, or I'm going to buy this thing when I get here. Like, dude, whatever, dude. You know what I want to do? Go ahead.
I just want to prick your intelligence for a second here and learn something.
Sure.
What happens when you drift out of that? Like, I won't lie. Like right when we started this call, I was like, sure, dude, I got to go take a shower. Sure. I've been on calls from 8 to now. I've talked marketing and conversion rates. I've done coaching. Sure. I've done sales calls. I'm like, sometimes you get drained in it, right? How do you go back to that? How do you go back to vision? How do you go back to impact?
I think you give yourself permission to take a day off. So I've been studying this month alone. I've only studied one author. I've read one author. This guy's a coach for 45 years, coached the highest entrepreneurs, writes these 100 books. And he says that you understand that as an entrepreneur, and I didn't know I was doing this already. He said that you have to schedule your days and weeks like an athlete. You're like a professional athlete and a movie star. And he says there are days where the spotlight's on, and then you need 24 hours where you don't have any meetings and it's just creative work and you're working and handling big dominoes, and then you have nothing going on. And I think that the way that I devise my schedule is amazing because it works for me, where I front load my week, and then the back half of the week is to catch up on some stuff or play golf with investors or hang out or go fishing with you. And then I show up on that Monday super jazzed up and ready to go, right? And I think the bigger issue is that I ask them a simple question. Everything that you're doing this week, what's the actual thing that needs to get done? Like, what's the actual thing that needs to get done, the one domino? And if it doesn't need to happen right now, then move it to the next week. Like, and then on the back of that, the bigger thing is that you have nobody to complain about your schedule to except yourself when you're running your own business. Mm-hmm. And so I have to catch myself as well too. Like I'm exhausted right now. Like I'm really tired, but I owe it to my people that are listening. And I owe it to you because I care about you and I want people to know how great you are so I can get up for that. And so I think the biggest thing for me, and I just said this earlier on a podcast, there's no meetings or anything on my schedule that's not a fuck yes. There's nothing I'm doing that's everything is a fuck yeah. I want to support you. I want to see you grow. I want to grow this business. I want to be on that podcast. Nothing on my schedule. And if it is, it's not going to be on there that long, or I'm just going to remove it in general. And I think that one of the things that I did that changed my life, I mean this wholeheartedly, and I want all my coaching clients to get there. I do not work on Fridays. I don't. I'm saying I might answer a text, I might do shit, but I do not it's play golf or hang out. And it's just giving you that 3-day freedom to be yourself again. Cause I really feel like the CEO, entrepreneur, and who you really are two different people.
That was awesome. Wish I had more words for that. That was my takeaway that I'm not doing is scheduling it.
Yes. So I've seen it now, guys. I coach some guys that make some serious cheddar, and guys that I respect. They'll schedule in their thinking time. They'll schedule in the time that they spend with their kids, And the reason they do that is because they don't want to have to be thinking all week how they're going to fit it in. So everybody's on the same page, right? And so one of the things I'm doing, this is super important. This is very rare for me to work on a Thursday, very rare. I'm going to grow multiple six-figure businesses working 3 days a week. And I'm going to work your ass in the dirt. And because you're telling me that you don't have enough time, but I'm telling me that your schedule is not proper. And I learned this from a really big syndicator who looked at my schedule 2 years ago and he goes, dude, your shit is terrible. Like, no, like you want to travel, this is not going to work for you. And so what I try to do is when I'm doing something, like perfect example for you, let's say you have a marketing day and you have business stuff, like you only do that day. So I only coach on Mondays. And so like, yeah, it might be like 16 calls or like 12 calls, but it's the only thing I do all day. So my mind is not being pulled in different directions. And so one of the things I've seen from a very high level guy that had multiple businesses is Tuesday was one business, Wednesday was another business, and then Thursday, and just compartmentalizing your brain because it's hard to switch back and forth.
Got a lot of work to do, Austin.
But understand that you've already done the hard part. Okay. And I'll tell you what my coach told me. I have set up my schedule the way I want, but my brain's not there yet. Like physically the schedule's right where it needs to be, but mentally I haven't made it there.
Okay.
And so you're already making the money and you're already set up. So this is your opportunity to redesign your life. And really it's not only redesign it, but also create firm boundaries. Right. And so one of the things I do with my clients, the number one thing I do is I find out exactly what they love to do. And I give them the permission to do that for an entire day. Like I have a client who loves to fish. And I'm like, how much have you fished? He's like, well, I haven't fished in 6 months. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Go fish. And he's like, you're telling me, a high performance coach is telling me to go fish and walk away from my, $500,000 a year business and wholesaling. Yes. 100%. And he's like, fuck, it feels so good to go do that. And so I would say the same thing to you. Like the level of your success is only dictated by you. So if it's dictated by you, then the only person that you have to be upset that your schedule is not the way it's supposed to be is you. And so if that's the case, Ed Milet and Andy Frisella were cracking me up. They were talking about, where do you come up with your best ideas? On the shitter and in the shower. Well, why do you do that? Well, it's the only place that's closed in. You don't have distractions. There's no TV on. And so when you get those days away, you might fix a problem that has been wearing on your mind. You might, fix that issue or find that employee that you need. And when I'm looking for an employee, like when I'm looking for somebody, like I'm tracking them for like months. Like I'm like, this is exactly who I need. And I'm like, I don't have enough money. They're not in the right place, but I'm like, all right. Like I'm like setting it up because I know that the people, right. And I've met the girl that runs your thing and she's a fucking badass. She is so cool. Like that's how we win. And so, you, in my opinion, just from an outside looking in, and I don't know much about your business, but you're winning by making relationships with future employees, with future partners, with future landowners. And anytime you're not spending doing that is time that it's not being fed in the business the proper way.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, dude, sorry, I went
no,
off.
I was like, hey, I probably owe you some value. Let me know if you want me to talk about anything else. That's honestly something I've been going through right now. It's like a lot of stuff coming up. That don't get me wrong, numbers look great, business looks great, but it's like I'm trying to get back into schedule of like exactly what you said, scheduling the quiet time, scheduling the rest time.
I think Alex Hormozy, who's probably one of the only guys I listened to for content, he said that he went up to a meeting and there's all these power motherfuckers, he's up there talking, and he said, oh, all you are some badasses, huh? He goes, I got a great idea. How about you go run your business 3 days a week and tell me how great you are? And it was like that moment when I heard that, and I was like, oh, so there is time in the day, right? There is time, but you're not, and I think one simple hack. This is a simple hack and we'll get out of here. Let's say that you have nothing scheduled on Thursday, like nothing. And somebody's like, hey, I need to schedule a meeting at 1:00 on Thursday. Do not schedule that meeting because you're thinking about it all day. It's basically ruining your entire day.
Yeah.
Instead, go, how about we meet next week? Unless it's an emergency, can we meet next week? I have another meeting at 8:00 on Tuesday. Can you do it at 9? And so what I do is I block all my times together instead of having a meeting at 8, a meeting at 10, and a meeting at 1 in the afternoon. And I know people do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And you lose focus. So it's like,
100%.
yeah, it's not ideal, but just block them up and then get done. And then you can enjoy the day. You know, like John Farber, who's my favorite dude in the entire world. I saw his goals for the year and I'm like, you son of a bitch. I'm like, so his goal was laptop closed every day at 1:30. I golf 5 times a week. And I'm like, that is a freaking genius. Like he's down in Colombia right now. I think he's in New York or Colombia. But like, I'm like, that's amazing. He has 3 businesses. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. And he's just happy and he's doing his content. And so we need to make sure that we're scheduling time for ourselves. But if people want to find out about what you have going on and your land course and all that stuff, how would they do that?
Yeah, I know we started land and then this turned into a life. I
don't even know why we talked about land. Yeah.
Go
sell land.
Masterclass.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find me just on any of the socials. Clint Turner. If you're on Facebook, we got a pretty active Facebook group for land investors, Learn.Land University. You can learn land with me for anywhere from free to paid. So, that's where I'd find me. Social media, Learn.Land or Learn.Land University.
I love it. Guys, if you got some value from this, send it to your friend. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.